Since US-Israel-Iran war has unfolded, we have seen so much about gaseous fuels. That LNG supply has been cut off from Qatar. LPG is out of supply and ECA has been revoked for the same. CNG prices are going to be hiked up and your PNG pipelines might get limited supply. But the question is, what is the difference between all of these gaseous fuels and why and how they differ? Hello everyone, welcome to Vajiram and Ravi's Flash News. My name is Shubhangi Singh and today we are not just going to understand the difference between the gaseous fuels such as LPG, LNG, CNG and PNG. We will also be understanding that how India wants to become a gaseous economy and also why are we lacking, what are we producing and how much we are import dependent. So let us begin with understanding the gaseous fuels that are present in front of us. So when we are talking about India becoming a gaseous economy, that means the main fuel of energy, that the transition from main energy source should be moving towards gas dependence rather than just diesel, petrol and others. Even though we are focusing towards highly renewable energy driven economy, but at the same time gaseous economy is efficient and definitely better than other fossil fuel alternatives. So when we are talking about gaseous fuels, we have four alternatives that we are going to talk about in detail. We have LNG, we have LPG, we have CNG and we have PNG. Now let us try to understand how they differ, and along the way we will also try to understand that how import dependent is India in terms of these gaseous fuel alternatives. So we will be starting with the first one, that is LNG, liquefied natural gas. When we are talking about liquefied natural gas, this is a natural gas which is liquefied at a very low temperature, that is 162 degrees Celsius in minus. When we are talking about this reduced temperature, this leads to reduction of the volume of this gas, and the reduction of volume is by 600 times. Now why it is done? Because by this method it is easier to store and also easier to transport. This particular gas is odorless, it is non-toxic and also it is a cryogenic fuel, and that is why it requires special insulated cylinders. The creation of this gas is facilitated by cryogenic technology itself. That is why the infrastructure of LNG is highly specialized. So when we are producing LNG, it is starting from natural gas, it is purified and then the liquefaction takes place, which is later transported and regasified. This is where we get CNG and PNG as well. So regasification occurs as CNG and PNG. So as you can see in the given tankers here itself, this is how LNG is transported in general. Now when we are talking about LNG, it is broadly used not only for power generation but very significant as industrial fuel and a huge component in city gas distribution. And when we are talking about all of this, because India is absolutely import dependent in terms of LNG, 100% import dependence in terms of LNG, this all sectors are going to be hit if our LNG supply is cut off from West Asia. Now we will straight up move to the next gaseous fuel, that is LPG, liquefied petroleum gas. Now when we are talking about liquefied petroleum gas, this is the most common form of gaseous fuel that is present around us in form of which is stored and present in cylinders. So this is a energy fuel which you regularly see in your households. Now when we are talking about LPG, it is a combination byproduct of petroleum and processing of natural gas that occurs, and it exists as a mixture of propane and also butane. So crude oil refining happens and natural gas processing, both combinations are important for production of LPG. Now when we are talking about LPG, you have to remember that this is heavier than air. So as a property, because it is heavier than air, whenever there is a leakage, it is situated on the ground and it can work as a fire hazard. So when we are talking about the storage has to be kept very proper, otherwise it can lead to hazards, and the storage is done as liquid under moderate pressure. It is easily portable in cylinders like we usually see, and it is also odorless. The odor is inserted so that if there is any leakage at all, we can detect it. Highly used in domestic cooking fuel, commercial kitchens. That is why the LPG shortage led to the invocation of ECA Act. You can go and watch the video on the ECA Act. I have covered in detail already. So when we are talking about usage of LPG, not just in commercial kitchens, household, but also industrial heating, and in a few places as auto fuel where we find auto LPG's usage. Now we will be moving to the next gaseous fuel that we are covering, that is CNG. Now when we are talking about CNG, that is compressed natural gas, it is nothing but LNG or PNG, but which is highly compressed. Highly compressed, and it is mainly only methane which is present, compressed at high pressures which is seen. It is a colorless, odorless gaseous fuel which is present, and when we were talking about LPG, if you remember, we discussed that that is heavier than air, but when we are talking about CNG, it is lighter than air, making it comparatively safer because it disperses quickly and does not emerge as a bigger fire hazard. When we are talking about CNG, usually stored in cylindrical tanks, and it is a great alternative to fossil fuels because it is comparatively cleaner. That is why if you will look at the public transports and the transports which are coming up with CNG, they are usually in green. So it is a comparatively cleaner fuel which can be used as transport fuel for cars, buses and also autos, and CNG has a lot of application in industries as well. Now we will be moving to the next gaseous fuel that is left with us, that is PNG. So when we are talking about PNG, that is piped natural gas, you have to remember that when we talk about LNG, we understood that PNG also is derived from there. So PNG is a natural gas which is directly supplied through pipelines, which can be utilized in homes, industries and also commercial establishment. Especially when we are talking about PNG, the pressures are limited and it is always directly supplied in gaseous form. As you can see, it is installed in kitchens and commercial kitchens, and the supply which is given, that is continuous. It is measured by proper meters which are installed, and there is no storage required. The storage happens in the pipe itself, and there is continuous supply. The usage here is gradually picking up in terms of domestic cooking, industrial fuel, and most importantly in commercial establishments such as hotels and hospitals. Now that we have covered 4 gaseous fuels, let us understand the whole chain that exists. So let us understand the whole gas value chain. So we have LNG, as I told, we are 100% import dependent, that comes through imports. Then we have domestic gas which is produced. After that, regasification takes place and LNG is converted into gas. Now this LNG is put into national gas grid and the pipelines which are present, which we saw in form of maps in the earlier slides, and this national gas grid, the pipeline, supplies the CNG to the transport sector and PNG as well to households and industry. But when we are talking about LPG, it exists in a total separate chain because LPG is formed as crude oil refining and natural gas processing takes place, and from that refineries and gas processing, it is directly stored in form of cylinders and then transported from there on. So I hope you have a fair clarity that how the production is different, how the composition is different, and also the usage is different. And in the starting, we talked about understanding their import dependence. So let us now move towards that. You can take a screenshot of this whole given table, which will help you summarize and also memorize whatever we have covered in detail already. Now talking about the import dependence, when we look at LNG, I had already discussed that the import dependence is 100% and we have imported form of gas only present with us. But when we are talking about LNG, we also understood CNG and PNG is derived from there. because the domestic production is derived from LNG, we have limited import dependence in terms of CNG and PNG. But LPG, when we are talking about LPG, we only have 55 to 60% domestic production. Again, we are hugely dependent, 40 to 45%, because we have immense high household demand. And when you look at this huge number of import dependence, it also shows that when we are talking about energy security and being a gaseous fuel-led economy also, we have a huge way to go. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comment section. If you have any doubts, put it down in the comment section. That was all from my side. Thank you so much.